Here we go. Focus. Speed. I am speed.
We will never sleep, cause sleeping's for the weak. That we will never rest, so we're all fucking dead.
No, sir, man. I don't like that crap. I'm a rocker, dude, through and through. Here's my favorite bands. AC/DC, Van Halen, not Van Hagar, Skinner, Def Leppard.
All right, we're on in 5 minutes.
We're headlining. We shouldn't be going on until at least 11.
It's the prom. It's over at 11.
Hey guys, what the heck is going on? My name is Sam Cox and this is the IMG Podcast. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. So today we have a very, very, very special guest. Today we are sitting down with Mr. Jaret Reddick, and over this year, Autumn and I have gotten the absolute privilege to get to know Jaret, and we're very happy to call him our friend. Jaret is just a fucking awesome guy. I mean, when you think about like what you wish your heroes would be when you meet them, you think of Jaret. So Jaret is the frontman for a band called Bowling for Soup. If you don't know who Bowling for Soup is, I would highly recommend checking them out, because if you go look at their catalog, you're like, oh shit, yeah, I know this song. Or you've probably heard Jaret on the theme song for Phineas and Ferb, and then like a fucking million other things that Jaret has done in his career. But as of recent, Jaret has put out a Texas country album, and he has started to kind of run the circuits in the Texas country scene. And he and Autumn are right now kind of running around in the same circles in the Texas scene, and are kind of doing shows together, and hopefully doing some more later this year. So you guys make sure that you are on the lookout for some Autumn Raglan / Jaret Ray Reddick shows, hopefully coming to a town near you. So we talk about a lot of different things in this podcast, but one of which is being a frontman, because Jaret definitely has that experience from both different angles. You know, obviously for being in Bowling for Soup for like fucking 30 years, and then being in Jaret Ray Reddick. We talk about the differences between obviously the genres, the punk rock genre versus the Texas country genre. And we talk about the differences in between, you know, being a frontman, being like 1/4 of a band, and then being kind of like the boss of another band and taking on the responsibilities and stuff. So there's a lot of people that listen to this podcast that are in a band, and there's a lot of people that listen to this podcast that have a band, if that makes any sense, like hire-ons and stuff. So this is a really good podcast to kind of compare the two, or really try to take some notes from what Jaret's saying. And we talk about that. We talk about being parents. We talk about just being in charge, being responsible on the road. We talk about the Texas country music scene, quote unquote. And when I say Texas country music scene, I definitely mean the Texas / red dirt / indie Americana southern music scene that's going on. It's really kind of hard to classify anymore, because it's just such a growing scene, the Texas regional scene, if you will. We talk about that as a whole and kind of where it's going, and kind of, you know, the I'd say the pros and cons of working in this music scene. So it's definitely a very, very cool episode, very informative. Super stoked that we got to have Jaret finally on the podcast, and I just want to say thank you guys again so much for listening. We have been really, really, really getting a lot of downloads here on the podcast, and we couldn't be doing any of it without you guys, without y'all sharing it with your friends and just streaming it while you guys are, you know, out there on the road, or, you know, out there doing whatever. So thank y'all very, very much. And without any further ado, here we go.
I know, but does it sound like shit?
No, we're good now. It's fixed now.
Oh, it fixed itself. Now we're doing all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I know. Now our baby's named after you, dude.
Yeah.
Noah Jaret. It's just such a beautiful name.
For anybody that doesn't know the backstory, Autumn and Jaret played a show. Autumn was 9 months pregnant that day, and the rule is if you have a baby, your water breaks, and
while you're on stage with another musician, then
you have to name it after the other person. So,
I mean, it was the most pregnant I've ever seen anybody in my life. Like,
yeah,
Autumn was miserable. I mean, like, right when I walked in, you were just there, and just like, you could just tell you were trying so hard. to be cordial to everybody, and you did such a great job.
Thanks.
Just the pregnant misery.
Yes. And can you believe it got worse? It got so much worse than that.
I know. I can't believe that she hung on longer. Because again, pregnant. Man, I'm a father of 3, and I mean, you were pregnant. It was great.
Well, and she's littler than 99% of people.
Yeah, I was 115 pounds before I got pregnant, and I gained like 60 pounds.
Yeah, she was wild.
It was wild. Yeah.
That's healthy baby.
Yes, she was 8 pounds when she came out. So
yeah, Autumn laid her down for a nap like right before we did this, and Autumn wanted to do this one with me today. She tries to do when we can now, but
we will see how it works. Though.
Yeah, so she could be here for like 5 minutes or the whole time. You never know. So
I can't wait to have you on the Rockstar Dad show and talk about. Well, let's not get into all of it right now because I don't want to blow it. So let's stick to your show.
Check out Jaret's podcast down in the description. Yours truly will be on there soon. I know that you've been doing a ton of press lately through radio tour, and you've been on a ton of other podcasts and stuff. And I know that, you're pushing the new record and stuff. And so I don't want to bore you too much with that kind of stuff because I know you wouldn't admit it, but radio tour can be a lot of the same questions over and over, and I don't want to do any of that kind of stuff. But I do want to.
But Bowling for Soup's been together 30 years, and every interview, I still get asked, what kind of soup? Where'd you get the name? What kind? Do you guys actually bowl? We get all of that stuff. So please, let's talk about the nerdy stuff. Whatever you want to
do it, man. Hell yeah. Well, Jaret has a record out. Go check that out down below. It's pretty good. It's pretty decent. I think we gave it a 7.5 out of 10. Is that?
Oh yeah, 7.5.
Something like that. Yeah, it was okay.
6.
Is that good on your show? Is that good?
Is anything's good. Anything that Autumn doesn't hate is good.
Oh my God.
It's hard to impress Autumn.
I think she did tell me that though. I think the night that we met, I think she was, pretty much if I can make it through the whole thing, it must be pretty good.
Yeah.
It sounds like something you say.
Honestly, yeah.
So, okay. So in this podcast, I like to try to dig into a lot of the business kind of stuff. And there's a lot of industry folks mainly that listen to this, and, up and coming musicians or other tour managers or merch guys or whatever, it's typically music industry people. So kind of want to dig in all that stuff. So I guess introduce who you are, and I'm going to dig into some questioning for you.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm Jaret Reddick, Jaret Ray Reddick. I am best known as the most attractive man ever in the history of Dallas, Texas. But aside from that, I am also the lead singer of the band Bowling for Soup, which we will celebrate 30 years next year as a pop punk band, and been doing it for a long time. I've had a lot of fun. Still going strong. However, I like to stay busy. And so recently, a year ago, I released a country record. And I just used my full name. So Jaret Ray Reddick, which I used to hate my middle name, but then I realized I was named after my grandpa. So it was a little cooler. And now that I'm a country musician, it's just oh, okay. That's the standard issue middle name, anyway. So my mom, I guess, just had a vision, but yeah. And so I'm a musician, voice actor down here in Dallas, Texas, and I like to have fun. I don't take myself very too seriously, but as far as the business side of things, I still co-manage Bowling for Soup, and we were self-managed till 2007. So through a bunch of the big hits.
Wow.
And then
I didn't know that.
That's impressive.
Back into the trenches, with Jaret Ray Reddick, back in the van. I'm actually in it right now.
Hey.
So yeah, man, I and of course I met you guys, through our radio plugger, and you were nice enough to set up a song swap. And as we said earlier, Autumn was nice enough to do it. And literally almost have a baby while we were up there.
Very close. We didn't actually name the baby Jaret.
Yeah, don't worry, guys. I wasn't that weird.
Yeah.
Almost happened.
No, but I thought when we did Phineas and Ferb that night, I really did. I thought man, she's excited. She's having now Adam's like, she's visibly having fun now.
Yeah.
We may have a baby.
You were like, oh no, please stop. I shouldn't have done this.
I will say that. So I don't know if you deal with this. And this may be a Rockstar Dad podcast conversation, but your kids are just not impressed with what you do. I know that like Raglan isn't a household name at all, but like Allie could care less that we play music for a living. Like anybody else would be like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. Like your parents are musicians. But the day that I came home and picked her up from school after we played with you and I showed her you and her singing the Phineas and Ferb theme song, she thought that was the coolest.
It's the only time
thing. And, yeah.
But I think that's everything, right? I mean, you know, like you said, I talked to a lot of dads, and obviously I've been doing this for a long time and got a lot of friends that are more famous than me and actors and comedians. And yeah, it's always something like that. You know, it's like, gosh, I mean, there's so many stories where my kids just finally go, oh, well, that's kind of cool. I mean, like recently we had the dude from iCarly on our show because he's a dad. The friend from iCarly, and my daughter thought that was the coolest thing ever. Oh, okay, so you get like real guests on your show. Yeah, I do. Yeah, we do just fine, but
not just people I don't know.
You know, but that's the thing though, is they just see you going to work. Right. And they know this. And even if they're there, they're just like, okay, this is what you just go up there and you play songs and tell jokes and people pay you money for it. Okay.
Right. Well, and a lot of the times they see us leaving as like a negative thing. So what do you think is probably like the biggest difference in between? Because you said that you co-manage Bowling for Soup, but I don't know how everything's split or the decisions or that kind of stuff. But like, what's like some of the biggest differences in between like Bowling for Soup versus Jaret Ray Reddick? Like,
yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I mean, we are technically a 4-way partnership in Bowling for Soup. You know, we're the sum of our parts, even though, you know, I tend to do more of the interviews and more of, you know, the songwriting and that. But, you know, all of that, like songwriting and stuff is all kind of works itself out with, you know, because I end up owning the songs and that stuff. So, and yeah, I do run things by them sometimes, but for the most part, there's just a trust there. And they tend to trust me. You know, I mean, I guess the biggest difference is, you know, like with the band, with Jaret Ray Reddick, like, first of all, like if I'm making $200 a night, the show's costing me quite a bit of money because I have to pay these guys no matter what, right. You know, so, you know, and nothing, and that's not on them. That's on, you know, my decision to want those guys in my band, and, you know, they're cutting me a deal, but still. So, you know, it's been a financial investment, first of all. And then second of all is just kind of also like making sure they feel included. Like, even though, you know, it's my name on it, you know, they want the opportunity to be able to play on a recording here and there, or, you know, to get excited about this or this. And so, you know, I'm still walking that line. You know, I've never really been in a band where it's not really a band, right. You know, like, right. I mean, I consider us a band, and I consider everybody in Jaret Ray Reddick a member of the band, but still the financial responsibility is on me. At the end of the day, if one of them can't make a show, we're going to try and get a fill in and do the show anyway, right. You know?
Yeah, there's a fine line, because it's like you want them to be included, but it's like there will come a point where, you know, and I say this because, you know, Raglan is realistically, you know, I play for Autumn in Raglan, you know, and then we've had guitar players and steel players and drummers and stuff. And you want everybody to feel included, but at the same time, you know, you don't want to tell somebody, hey, we're opening for Bree Bagwell, and then be like, cool, well, I make the same every show. It doesn't even matter to me. But you want them to feel invested. You want them to be like, hell yeah, man, we're opening for Bree. You know what I mean? Like, we as a band, we're doing this cool show, or we're, you know, so I'm sure there's a fine line for everybody that has hired guns, quote unquote, for
invested. And I think invested is a really good word. and just, and that's just it. They want to see it. Like, I mean, I send them, the new single is doing well on the charts. It's only week 3 and we're, we were the fastest. We jumped the most spots this week.
Cool.
Out of anybody. And, that's our first like really big, like kind of cool thing that's happened chart wise.
Right.
And of course, so I sent that to them, like I want them to be stoked. But at the same time, those guys also are like, if I haven't paid them for a few shows, one of them will go, hey man, gosh, we can send that money, at some point. And the thing, but they should do that, and that's just, it is the way. So, so those are the really big differences. I mean, the other thing is that like, I try and, I try and like make sure like, hey, did you guys get food? Like, is there anything I can, whatever, just to make sure everybody's taken care of in Bowling Pursuit. I don't give a shit if they eat.
Yeah, that's a good point. I do feel like we're like that, like with people that we like are hire-ons. It's like,
right.
We want them to be taken care of. We have to like worry about if they're having like a good time at the show.
100%. Yeah. And it's like, even in the van, like if somebody's quiet or like,
it's like, what's wrong?
So our, I don't think you'll mind me using this example, but my guitar player's wife has some allergies so if we stop at a convenience store and it's like all bullshit food, there's like nothing to eat or whatever. Like I'm like, is everything all right? She'll find something. Are you sure? Like I want everybody. Yeah, right. You're right. But again, and in Bowling for Soup, is the gas tank full? Let's go. Just who gives a shit? Speak of cheese, I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's a big one. And, that's the same too, is like, I just give them my drink tickets, and I just pay for my beers, things like that. If I don't really eat before a show, because just for whatever reason, like burping and
that's what I was gonna say, because burping,
that really is the reason. So after about 3-4 o'clock, I'm not eating until after the show. And so, if we have meal tickets, I'm just like, here, give this to your wife or girlfriend or whatever. I don't. You just want to make sure that they're taken care of. So I think those are kind of the big things. And and again, like, there's just that weird conversation to have, like, hey, we got offered this show. Oh, I can't make it. Oh, well, we're going to do it anyway.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
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 Show must go on.
The thing about hire-ons is it's like, at the end of the day, on paper, like, they don't owe you anything. They really don't, and it's just a trust. It's like a relationship. It's a, kind of putting faith in each other. They have faith in us to keep them busy. We have faith in them to hopefully accept, to be a priority when we offer the show to them or whatever. But with Bowling for Soup, it's like, if there's a show op that came up, and it's like, if all 4 people can't do it, then all 4 people can't do it, and it's,
well, the thing is that if pretty much, if there's a show that comes up and it's not like something crazy big, like, you're just missing that. Right. Like, that's just the way that it works.
Okay.
It's always been that way, like when we decided to go for it, it was like, all right, so funerals are out, weddings are out, birthday parties are out. You're not going to any of those anymore, and it's funny. Rob just joined the band in 2018 and he kept putting all these dates on the calendar. Like, all right, well, this is my cousin's wedding. This is my cousin. He's from this really big Italian family. This is my cousin's wedding. This is my other cousin's wedding. Now I got a buddy from high school. He's like, early 30s. So he's like right in that sweet spot. Everybody's getting married. And, but he'd go, but if something comes up, like, let's just talk about it. When finally I was just like, you can't put all these on the calendar. Right. Like, basically it's the opposite. If you end up at home, go. But if not, like, that's not the way. We can't all always have something else going on. It's like, you got to think there's 52 weekends in a year and you got 4 guys. If every guy takes 2 weekends off and then you have the off days anyway, and that's how we started. So
that's a lot of money, dude. Yeah.
And I think that's a struggle for us too, is like finding those people that like understand you don't get to kind of do all of
Like,
that
this is
anymore.
what-
Like you have to sacrifice some of that
We
time.
have 5
to
days
make
a
it
week
work.
off. It's completely backwards for us, you know,
Yeah.
because, there's 48 hours a week where we have to be on the clock. So as far as like responsibility and stuff, did it freak you out at first where if, being in like the punk rock scene where it was like, if, somebody, messed up on stage or, kind of got a little, tipsy or whatever, it's like bowling for soup. And it's like, oh yeah, we had a good time. The band had a good time. But like in Texas and you be having your hire-ons at the end of the day, like say you have your fiddle player, your drummer or something, and he ends up, getting hammered. And, they're not going to say that guy specifically because, like say with Bowling for Soup, it's like, oh man, Chris was just hammered at that show. But,
and nobody would care.
Right.
Yeah, we would make it part of the show.
Right.
Yeah, that's just it. It's like with Bowling for Soup, we have such a good get out of jail free card for most anything. I mean, if somebody messes up, we'll stop in the middle of the song and be like, like if I mess up a solo, I'll be like, stop, I think I need another chance, and I'll have the audience vote of whether I get another chance or something. You can always make it into a bit. I mean, so I will say this though, with my guys, as far as the Jaret Ray Reddick band, they all take it very seriously and they're all already invested and they care. And so we haven't had anybody not be able to play because they were too drunk yet. It'll happen, but it's not the end of the world, but we've definitely had some mishaps. I mean, we had, at the Austin Fair, our poor guitar player picked up his guitar and it's this weird tuning for this one cover song we were doing. And that it was so out. We literally had to stop and I had to do like okay, so we're going to, whatever I did. I talked to him, whatever, but he was mortified, like it wasn't anything that I needed to be upset about because man, I mean, he was so mad at himself and it really wasn't that big of a deal. But, I think those guys put so much, and then, we've had, early on shows, like everybody's had their nights where they just didn't have, we're firing on all cylinders now, but we've only been playing as a live band since August of last year. And so, even Rob, who's, the bass player in Bowling for Soup, is literally, he's never listened to country music. He's learning to be a country bass player. It's like, why are all these country bass players so damn good?
Yeah, dude. Yeah. It's
the way that it is, buddy.
There's no cheat code, man, especially with like in the Texas scene. It's a thing with punk rock. It's sometimes, and I say this because I came from, I don't know if you and I have ever had this conversation, but I came from like, punk and metal background and it's almost sometimes at shows you can get away with sloppier and almost the crowd almost likes it depending on how DIY that shit is, but with the Texas music, it's like
you kind of have to be more on it.
You gotta be on it.
Yeah, there's no faking it in Texas, man. It's
kind of not funny. It's not as fun. I mean, I think I have a tendency to be able to make anything like less serious. It's just something that I have, and I don't. And
I'm the complete opposite. I feel like everybody's like, why are you like looking like that all the time? Like you said, like it was like, I'm just not impressed with things. People say that all the time, like I look like I'm not impressed.
Yeah.
I'm like,
my history with you were just 9 months pregnant. So I'm just so far back.
She was not impressed with life in general.
Yeah, that was Autumn amplified.
Okay. So I do have a question about, because you mentioned radio. So, Texas radio versus, and I know I keep bringing up Bowling for Soup. Like I know that you're doing your thing, but
no, listen,
you're in
it's
the band for 30 freaking
to,
years, so I'm gonna have to.
It's fine to compare the two. I mean, I one of the things, and actually I say this on radio all the time. Like I'm doing the Jaret Ray Reddick thing, and I'm serious about it. Again, I'm sitting in a van. I was in a van for 9 years in Bowling for Soup, and out of it since 2009, and here I am back in it. So that should tell you that I'm serious about this. But I also don't need to run from who I am. And if it weren't for Bowling for Soup, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you about the country stuff. So I think the juxtaposition of the two and either where they started versus where they started or where they are versus where they are or whatever, it's a good topic of conversation. And I tend to do that myself, actually. I tend to go, well, this is like this, but this was like this over there, and years, so
right.
By all means.
And I know that you guys really got your start back in the day from radio. And so do you feel like, we'll take Texas radio and, rock radio in general. Do you feel like, the Texas radio scene has really benefited you from the amount that you put in it in the last year, 2, 3 that you've been doing your solo stuff compared to the in the earlier days when you were doing rock radio and stuff? Do you feel like it's still just as viable?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think more. I mean, it feels like doing radio right now feels like what it was like to do whatever radio we could do in the early days of Bowling for Soup. So if we'd go to Abilene, Texas, and the rock station would let us come in, but we weren't getting into Dallas stations. The difference is that with Texas country, there's Texas country stations in Cherokee, Texas. I honestly have lived here my entire life. I didn't even know there was a Cherokee, Texas. And it just so happens that everybody's favorite personality lives in Cherokee, Texas, right. And so that's one of the things is just, but here's the thing. We went from rock radio to alternative radio to pop radio when I was in Bowling for Soup. And by the time we got to pop radio, we were rock stars and we had hits and we legitimately could walk in and go, I mean, we got a hit and then we had another one and then another one. So we weren't just some flash in the pan. And in pop radio, 90% of the time, the DJ thinks they're doing you a favor. And maybe
right.
They are. I mean, the radio station for having you in there is doing you a favor. But what I mean is just by allowing you to be in their presence, a lot of times it's their thing. And the minute you start to be funnier than them or overshadow them, they will woo. And especially morning shows. For me, I mean, I played the game for a really long time in Bowling for Soup. I was absolutely just acted like everybody was the greatest thing in the world. Right, and then it kind of got to a point where I was like, I don't like doing this.
Yeah.
I don't like this. I don't like these people. They're not doing me. They're not even playing my song. I can get people to come to the shows. I don't want to do this anymore. And so it was actually really refreshing when I started doing Texas country because the first stations I went to were just like, we're so glad you're here. Let's go get, KNES or whatever, where you go there. They're just like, let's go to this huge buffet. Today's chicken enchilada day.
They all want to hang out. They want to show you their life. Every single one of them. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And they're so thoughtful and glad, and they thank you for stopping in. And honestly, I've done 4 trips now, and each time as I'm starting out, I'm just like, man, I hope I don't walk in and they're just like, who the hell are you, kind of thing. And I've never experienced that, so it's been really refreshing. And the other thing that's really refreshing is how in touch with the scene all of the DJs and programmers are. They'll go, oh, you played with Bree at such and such, or I saw that you and blah, blah, I thought you and Bart Crow are friends and this and this and this. And so they sort of already know that and are in touch with it. And it's not necessarily about you just don't feel like you're unwelcome,
Right.
And that's the big difference is for so many years, I mean, honestly, it's funny. It'd be hard for me to name more than 10 DJs that ever even that interviewed me over the course of the Bowling for Soup radio time. And I was doing 3 and 4 stations a day for, 7 years. And where are they?
Right,
but
right.
that yet, I just didn't get treated well. And another thing is that your promotion person didn't get treated well. It was just gross the way that they treated. So I don't miss that at all, but I am very glad to be, in the world of the Craig Vaughns of the world,
Yes.
Yeah.
We love Craig.
Man. Listen,
I saw a nice little postcard you wrote him.
No.
And, but yeah, he's he's not like on an island by himself, like he's amazing, but
Right.
there's so many others out there that are just badass and care and, will give you their phone number and go, if you ever need anything, call me. And that's just what it's all about for me, and you can just tell that it's more of that than it is just, look, radio is great to me.
It's good hearing you say this as somebody that just started doing Texas country radio within the last couple of years. It's good hearing you say that because,
I didn't start doing it. I've
mean?
been less than a year. I've been doing
that. Even better. It's just awesome because like, even when we started in the Texas Red Dirt radio thing back in 2018, 2019, a lot of it was bittersweet, but man, when they were good, they were good. When they were bad, it was bad. And it's just, that's just the difference. That's why I love the Texas Red Dirt Americana scene that we're in, is because it's like from Oklahoma, these small market radio DJs, dude, you can't beat them. You really can't. Like they're just,
they care, and you feel like right when they walk in, oh man, I'm so glad you're here. We've been trying to get you in, and
and usually when you leave, they're like, please come back soon.
Yeah.
Like we would love to have you back. Like if you're coming through,
picture.
If you're coming through the area, like stop in.
You know what? Shout out to
they see you on Facebook and they're like, where you been? We miss you. Come by again.
Yeah.
Just like, that's I think it's pretty unique, honestly. I mean, I don't think I know. I mean, I think that's why the scene is so friendly and just, I think it starts, in all corners of it, whether it be the bands and then the promoters and the, and the radio stations and all of that. And everybody is just so far so good for me, man. Welcoming and sweet. And,
and I would like to think that for the most part, the, again, the Texas country Red Dirt scene, I know it's hard to classify it anymore, but, we just don't accept shitty people, it's kind of like just collectively, there's a few venues and a few PDs here and there, but the scene knows that they're jerks too. I don't know. We just don't tend to run with people like that, but,
even tour managers in Texas country are nice.
Yep.
And rock, they're all dicks. I mean, like, mine isn't, because you're not allowed to work for me and be a dick, which
Dave's awesome, man.
Right.
Yeah, he came across as like one of the nicest people I've ever met, dude.
Well,
he was great.
But sometimes it's funny. My sound guy's been with me since like 1999, with the exception of a few years. And, he's from New York. And when he came, he was trying to muscle people, whatever. I was like, whoa. That's not how we're going to operate at all.
Right.
The goal of me and my crew is when we go in, when we leave, we want everybody going, that's the nicest band we've ever met in our lives. And,
well, and everybody said that about you. Even I've just seen, Travis and Remy posting about it the other day, and I was just like, that's freaking right. That's how we do it. I wanted to take a quick second to plug our Patreon. So I've had a few people over the last few months kind of reach out and ask how they can support this podcast, and because they've been listening to all the episodes and they've gained a ton of knowledge on all the guests we've had on this podcast and just the things we've been talking about, and they want the podcast to keep going. Well, first of all, guys, this podcast isn't going to go anywhere. We're going to keep doing it no matter what. We just love doing it, and we love having conversations with each other and with other guests that we're having. We gain a ton of knowledge ourselves as it is. But if you feel like supporting the podcast, which we would highly, highly appreciate, you don't have to, but if you feel so inclined, there is a link down below for our Patreon. All of the finances from things like this podcast and the Patreon and streaming and all that stuff kind of get dumped into the same bucket. So it all goes to the same place. So by supporting on Patreon, you are by default supporting this podcast. So if you guys feel so inclined, check out the link below. And on that note, I'm sure you guys have noticed over the last 4 or 5 episodes, we've started to have some sponsors on the podcast. That's super cool because this podcast has been growing at a very, very fast rate, which we are extremely stoked about. But if you guys are interested in being a sponsor on this podcast, feel free to reach out to me or Lisa if you guys know us personally, or check out our emails down below in the description. You guys can contact us there. And without any further ado, let's get back into it, guys.
So I had a question to start us up here. It's just like, it seems like you've done the thing that we all want to do. right? Like the reason that me and Sam are doing what we're doing, or any musicians that we know that are, trying to get to where they're going. So it just seems like you've done everything. And this may be a question you've been asked a lot, but it's something that I genuinely am like curious, like, why did you start this new project, and like why Texas music? Like what drew you to that, and why? After it seems like from the outside you've accomplished.
There's a perception that because of our success that we could, and honestly it sort of sucks. We missed that by about 2 years. Because our first hit's 2003, but when we really blew up, it's 2005. So that's all Napster, LimeWire, like all at a high. And so it really, really affected us record sales wise quite a bit, which is fine. But I am quick to say that I've lived the dream of something that literally 99.999% of people pretend to do at some point, sing in the mirror and pretend to be a rock star. And I got to do that, and I still get to do it in my other band. So I'm not chasing that again in any way. I just love creating things. I like making music. I always wanted to do a country record. I think at my age, it made a lot of sense for me to, if I was going to do something else, to finally do this country thing, because I haven't aged out by quite a bit yet, So, but really, again, it's, I've got a Waylon and Willie tattoo on my arm. It's been something that I was going to do forever. And as I said earlier, Bowling for Soup allows me a lot of time to sit and get myself into other trouble. And so when I made this record, at first it was just kind of like, okay, we'll just see what happens. I don't know what I'm going to do. Maybe I'll do some acoustic shows but honestly, right when I started getting the band together the first time, we opened up for Bree. Actually, several months before that, we had played C2C Festival in London as a band that I just put together full of guys, and I had a blast. But really, once I got these guys together, and we did our first show, Green Hall, with Bree Bagwell, and then, a couple of shows later, and it just really felt like, I'm gonna do this for real, and again, going back to the whole radio thing, I put out a single, so I was like, man, I'll go on a radio tour. That sounds great. I haven't done that in a long time. Plus, it's just me and my tour manager driving around. We're like eating lunch at these little cafes on the square. It's great. And so, yeah, I mean, honestly, there's no real big thing that I hope to accomplish from this. I just really want to keep making music. Yeah. I'm really lucky in that the pop punk genre just kind of keeps going. It's like, Blink-182 and Green Day have been around longer than us. So as long as they keep doing it, nobody's going, hey, why are you guys still here?
Yeah.
And there's others, Offspring, and then there's guys that are around the same amount of time as us, as Simple Plan and Sum 41.
And they keep making, I don't know if you'd call it subgenres. I'm gonna sound dumb because you're on this podcast, but you got other new waves. Okay, that's a better word. New waves of punk rock. Like Knocked Loose and Knuckle Puck, and people. Modern baseball and like all this other stuff. It's still punk rock. It's just a different. You know what I mean? And you guys
we all listen to the same bands. It's funny. It's like some of those bands you're mentioning started listening to me and my friends. And so but it all kind of comes from the same place. But no, I'm not out doing it because I have to. I am definitely out doing it because I want to.
Yeah. That's kind of a big thing. I was wondering, I was like, I'm so confused because it seems like he's just done everything that I would love to do and then sit around a little bit, but I don't know. So now that you say that though, I'm like, maybe I will get to the point where I've accomplished what I want to. And then, I guess maybe I'll realize like, I just really want to just keep creating. And so that's cool that's what you're trying to do.
But here's the thing, Autumn, is that like, I think something else you should know about me is that I do, like, for example, even on a radio tour, I go to you guys and hey, y'all want to set something up and play a show? Like, I'm going out and playing a show, with however many 48 hours notice we had for that thing. And because like, that's freaking fun. And now I know, and it's like, I met, I met some other great people that night, and, we had a great night. And hey, yes, I made a few bucks. I put a little money in the gas tank, but it definitely wasn't the point. It's getting out there. I like entertaining people. I love making people laugh. I love making people sing. Sometimes it's fun to make them cry, but again, like, I got to meet you guys, and now I know your songs, and it's fun for me to go to other radio stations and talk about you guys. And I wouldn't have had that experience if I weren't going, I don't want to sit in a Hilton tonight or I don't.
Yeah.
That sounds terrible. I want to go to a bar and play a show. So yeah.
I have a question, kind of like what Autumn was saying, but a little bit different. So now that, you've done it, you've like,
done the thing.
You've done the thing. You know what I mean? Like, you've done the thing. And so, so going into the Texas genre, and again, I know it's, apples and grapefruit or whatever, but it's like, do you feel like, cause I had a friend that, was in a pretty decently known rock band in Tulsa. And then they ended up breaking up. And then in our earlier days, he played with us, and he had mentioned something that I'll never forget. He said something along the lines of like, man, it's like playing a video game, except this time around, it's a little bit easier because I know where all of like the stops are and that kind of stuff. And so I wonder that with you, is it like, take Zelda Ocarina of Time or, Super Mario World or something, like, your second time around, it's like you beat the game. It's like, I guess I'm gonna start it over. Do you feel like starting the Texas country thing, you kind of know where to avoid potholes, or, hey, there's a star power right in here, or, hey, this is what I shouldn't do or should do?
Is it easier to navigate?
Yeah, the second time around.
That's a great analogy. And there's updates though. So like they're like around
updated.
Mine updated today. Yes, I understand.
Around this corner it used to sort of be this, but like, oh, okay, so this is going to be that, so but honestly, it's kind of falling back into that whole thing. I'll tell you a prime example of, and you and I have talked about this, and I have over the last 3 weeks have completely changed my mind. But, I didn't want to headline. I was just like, I just need to be support band.
I had. Yeah.
I don't need to be out there headlining and yada, yada, yada. But what I've learned is that I can put enough people into these places to make it make sense on the given night already, if I just work my ass off. They're not expecting that. That's just it. It's almost back to the club days of Bowling for Soup. Like, they don't expect every single show to sell out, which is what I thought coming in. I thought, oh, okay, well, this name, I'm not going to mention any specific, but this name, they all sell out. I've only played one sold out show, and that was with Bree Bagwell for her CD release at Green Hall. And that's our first show. There hadn't been one even close since then. And so now I'm like, okay, well, that's now I've got a little bit more of perspective on it. So that's just one of those things you learn as you go. So I backed up and I reset. I got another guy, and I'm like, oh, we just do exactly what Bowling for Soup did. We just keep going back to that place, and we keep putting more and more people in there, say hi to every single person we possibly can, and beg them to bring their sister next time.
Yeah.
Now it can be brother because I'm married, but whatever, It's definitely one of those things where it's like, I look at, like, the video game analogy is so good, because I was just telling my wife, I was just telling my wife the other day about how, like, on certain games from the 80s, I had patterns. And so, like, Super Pac-Man was one of the ones where, like, I can get through every actual, like, one treat stage with just this one pattern that I have, and then it all goes to hell. But I was just like, it's almost like they threw one little wall in there. You got to figure out where that wall is, and So anyway, I like the video game analogy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, I always wondered because, I'd play back in the day, I'd play red, blue, yellow Pokemon or, Zelda, Ocarina of Time. And after you beat the game, and Jaret, you beat the game in the world of,
yeah.
You take the top 100 rock bands of all time. I mean, you guys are in it, and it's just kind of like.
We're actually number one.
Oh, we're number one. Okay. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. That's crazy because I thought you guys were like 2. But no. And
well, you also said my country album was pretty good.
It was pretty good. It was a 7.5 out of. That was awesome.
7.5 out of 10.
Hey, let's be clear here. I never rated your album. People are going to take that so serious. You're like, I rated his album. Tomatoes. Yeah, I didn't.
But it's like, what do you do after you beat the game?
I love being on a stage. I mean, again, we were just talking about, me playing the other day with Travis and Remy in Amarillo. And again, me and Autumn show, I think is one for the record. But I think there are people that was at that show that me and Autumn did that are literally never going to forget it. Because
they talk about it. Everybody talks about it all the time. Like there's people that I'm friends with on Facebook and you and them are their profile picture. And even I don't is like that was his favorite day in history.
And I don't know if you know this, but we actually we seriously had a friend there that already has named their child after you. Like seriously.
Yeah, I did know that.
Yeah.
I did know
that.
Okay,
you met him then?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
that was probably like the best day of his life.
That's the whole thing, man. Is like that's it. I just love it so much, and just the fact that also but let's not get away from the songs too. Like I think we're talking about the touring and the grind and all of that, man, but I get to write these songs now, and in Bowling for Soup, it's pretty important for me to continue to make people happy because that's what our band does. But so even if I'm writing about a serious thing, I will usually take it and spin it, so that it makes it funny. So like the guy with the broken heart, but at the end, the girl falls down the stairs or whatever it is. I don't know. It's not funny. I mean, it is funny because when people fall, it's hilarious. But
I know. I laughed. Oh, sorry.
I know. But anyway, but I get to write these songs where I don't do that, where I leave you on the thought and let you, paint that picture for yourself. And, so that's a big thing too, is just the creation of the music itself. And so it's, I guess to put it all together, to answer that question is, it started with just wanting to make the record and make the songs, and then just, kind of getting that live band together, and then, figuring out that, wait a minute.
You kind of like it.
You didn't know that you were going to go and hire a radio promoter and all that stuff whenever you were making the record. You were just like, I just want to do this. And that's cool.
And that's funny. Like there's something about the Texas music scene that really gets you hooked on performing. These fans, they really get you hooked on being around them. And I don't know, just something about running this circuit is really, it's really attractive to musicians.
Yeah.
It is.
I totally agree. And I think again, it sort of goes back to, 9 years of Bowling for Soup in the van before things really took off. I mean, you think about it, that's a really long time. It's longer than most bands stay together. That's longer than most bands have an idea to be a band, form, stay a band, then do a reunion show. It's a long time to be in a van. And, but that's the way that it was for us. We had people that we knew in every city. And Texas was huge for us, and all of these same places that I'm going back to now. It's nice, and people, it's funny. I was just in Abilene, and that was a really big town for us in the late 90s. And sure enough, 5-10 people that were like, oh man, I used to see you every day. And I was like, I know who you are,
That's cool.
But that's the way it feels, it feels just kind of getting back to that. And I don't hate it. I really have enjoyed it.
And when you're talking about, the van and the punk days and stuff, and at the end of the day, and I say this because, back in the day, I was in the punk rock band and stuff, and you don't make, especially in the early days, you don't make any money playing punk rock. You sell tickets for shows and physical tickets, and you hustle and you try to get 30 people, come on up to the front, and
I don't know how you did it that long, because I hated doing it.
And so
it's worst days of my life.
Which, I got to fill you in on that later, Jaret. But,
figured it out though. We did this thing where we became two separate bands, both called Bowling for Soup, and we could go to Fort Worth, say, to this one club, and we'd play cover songs for 3 hours, but we did them in the style of Bowling for Soup. So we would play, Elvis, Beach Boys, Beatles, like cool songs, but we would play, it sounded like the Ramones playing them. People absolutely loved it. So we'd get paid $600.
That would do good on TikTok now.
And then we'd be able to go over and play for $25 at the club where everybody wants to play,
Yeah.
And so that's how we were able to survive doing it. Otherwise, there has been no way. But what we did was we included that we'd get a show at, say, at Curtain Club or Trees or something. And every time you saw us, we could pull another cover song out and you'd be like, oh my God, they do that so good. But you didn't know that every third weekend we were playing those songs for 3.5, 4 hours, 2 nights, 2 nights that week.
Them. Yeah.
Perfecting them.
Well, and it's funny, you guys are still doing that now, even with, the Miley Cyrus cover.
We do, yeah.
And that kind of stuff too. So it's just cool that like you just you never stop doing where you're.
No, it's been our thing.
At,
Yeah, that was a big deal for us. Is making the cover songs sound like Bowling for Soup has always been, our little deal. I mean, it's on our first record, that we did with Jive. We did Summer of '69, and that was a big leap off for us as well.
Yeah. So do you feel like whenever you like came into the Texas country scene, and not that you haven't been in it it's just weird because it's like, you're from Texas. So it's like, in the music realm, you have respect, but do you feel like in the Texas country music scene, like you needed to gain some street cred because like you came from the punk rock world, or
I think I was worried about that at first. I was worried about a couple of things, just being accepted, but also I didn't want somebody just thinking that I was just like, oh, I'm this guy. I'm coming into your world and I'm going to do this. But honestly, I think I did it right. I released the album. I let the songs kind of sit out there for a little while before I started doing it. And then, so everywhere that I go, it's like, oh yeah, I mean, most of the time what I hear is, oh, it makes sense. We do, that seems like something you would do. But the artists have been great. I mean, if the artist didn't listen to Bowling for Soup when they were kids, then their sister did, or their kid watched Phineas and Ferb, and the same is true for, the DJs as well. And, sometimes I'll run into a DJ that's just like, oh man, I used to be at this station and you guys did this show. And I'll go, and I have this gift for being able to remember literally every show I've ever played with like just a few context clues. And so I'll go, oh, and that was with this band and this band and this. They're like, yes, that's that. And so that's
amazing.
Up. Yeah. And that happens a lot. So no, I mean, I haven't really had to really, show my peacock feathers. Is that a thing? I think I might have
that's an analogy that happens when musicians get together, especially in this music scene, and you got two egos that come together. They kind of raise up their feathers, and they're like that. It's kind of.
That's an analogy we use for that. Yeah.
No, it's funny that you say that because we.
I know that. Yeah, but we also use another one that we will. But yes, I got you. The thing is that I don't have an ego. And so really, if somebody else were to have one, I would be fine with that. And, that's great. I'll be standing inside stage singing the songs and, just being happy to be there. But yeah, it's been, from the press to the radio to the bands to, bar owners, everybody's just been really, really kind. And, they always go to the music first, even if it's the other band, if they're like, oh man, I loved Girl the Bad Guys Want, but Royal Family made me cry, so it's, I think that's that's so cliche, but at the end of the day, that's sort of why we're here, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
just because it's cliche doesn't mean it's wrong.
That's very true.
So
like Autumn, your songs say something, and I think that's so cool. And
Thank
it's
you.
like, I walked away from that show just completely blown away. Like when I go into radio interviews, I'm like, oh, those are my friends that she writes the freaking best lyrics ever. And they're like, right. And
that's good to know that people think that, I guess.
I I get inspired by that going, man, see, like I can take it sort of further. And again, there's another aspect of the whole thing that you don't really take into consideration when you're like, you're doing the damn thing. Like, it's kind of cool to just keep getting better.
Yeah.
You know? And, so I think Bowling for Soup released, if not our best, one of our 2 or 3 best records out of the 20 something that we have, you know, during the pandemic. And, so I'm on a roll right now, and that's just it. I just want to keep getting better.
Yeah, you got record number 2 in which, and I think I have a couple more questions for you, then I'll let you go. But you got record number 2 in the works for Jaret Ray Reddick?
I'm just starting to write, really. I mean, I've got you know, the normal notes in my phone and voice memos in my phone. Just, I mean, it's just because I'm very not organized in those things.
Yeah, mine's horrible. I'm the same way. I'm like, I will never, ever, ever, ever be able to organize these notes. Yeah, what is the point of me even writing in them anymore?
I know, it's crazy, but at the same time, it's like back in the day, I used to just write in tablets, you know, and so that was all scattered too. So I don't get really any difference. But you know, I want to do some co-writes and do some things out of the box, you know. But yeah, I mean, I'd really like to get a record out by the end of the year, if not first of next year. Super busy for Bowling for Soup because it's our 30th anniversary and it's the 20th anniversary of Hangover You Don't Deserve, which was our biggest record. And so we're going to be working a lot. So I'm really trying to work as hard as I can on the country thing this year to get it established, and that way I can just go back and forth easily.
Yeah.
Do you feel like now that you've gotten in touch with your love song side of music, do you feel like now that you've kind of like settled into that and gotten comfortable with that without making it a joke, you know, your words, but do you feel like you're going to kind of go deeper into that, like in you know, Jaret Ray Reddick record number 2, or do you feel I think I'm gonna do the opposite, actually. I don't think I want to write a comedy record, and I don't but what I did was I really was scared to come out and be seen as a novelty. So I didn't let my songs be overtly funny, even though there's funny stuff on the record, but it's, you know, I really, really, really held back on them, of the smartness of how I write in Bowling for Soup. Not necessarily zany. That's not what I mean. I just mean, like, I tried really hard not to do that. And even my personality on stage the first 6 or 8 months, you know, I was trying not to make a joke of things, and everybody in the band and my wife and everybody was just like, just be yourself. That's what everybody likes about you. Just stop it. Be yourself. And I am now. You know, when you come see us live, you get, you know, it's not as rated R as or, you know, NC-17 as Bowling for Soup. It's not like that. But I joke, you know, if there's a drunk guy, I'm going to F with him, you know. I mean, it's because that's my personality. I would do that even if I wasn't on stage, you know. So I'm going to allow myself to do both. I'm going to allow myself to do the royal family, the you know, those things where I can be more serious. If you're a Bowling for Soup fan, Turbulence and When We Die kind of thing. But I'm also not going to shy away from taking, you know, songs on my record that are a little silly, like Doggone It or Truck Up and Left Me, and making those even more both great songs, by the way.
Thank you, man. Yeah. And you know, that's the thing is, like, with Bowling for Soup, it takes actually listening to our songs to get past the fact, oh, that's that funny band. But then if you go listen, you're like, okay, there's substance here too. Yeah. They're well-written songs. And so, anyway, that's my plan. My plan is to really just whatever happens, and I'm not going to put myself in
a box or like a plan. Yeah. Are you going to try to, are you going to make it a thing where you do like a Bowling for Soup song on each country record, or are you like gonna, was that just kind of your bridge? Yeah. Your bridge, because it had Texas in it. Yeah. I mean, you know, well, it made sense to do Ohio because Zach and I wrote that song and he produced and co-wrote the country record. So it made sense to do that. Nice. Cool. And the big song I did because
during lockdown, I did so many online shows, and the fans would always be, I would do the bitch song and it would sound like a country song, and they're like, man, you gotta do that as a country song. So I did both of those. We're actually even pulling back the gear, like the last few shows, we were doing the full song of 1985. We don't even do that anymore. We do like a chorus too.
That's cool.
And I'm not, again, this is funny. I'm not trying to hide from it. I want to hint at it. I want people to know I want to be that, but I don't really want that to be, well, now we should do almost, and now we should
right. Yeah. You open the floodgates and you're, yeah.
And at first, that's kind of what I was doing. I was really like, okay, next we got to do Turbulence. And what I realized was Bowling for Soup fans get their fill of Bowling for Soup when they go watch Bowling for Soup. Like, let's just do this thing that we're doing. Right. And it's been really good. I mean, nobody's complained. Nobody said, hey, you only did 2 choruses of 1985. What's the deal?
Right.
Everybody, that was so cool when you did the throwback to the 1985 thing. And
I feel like that happened around the time which maybe I'm wrong, but back in, when did we do that show? January? That'd have been January. And, and you and I were talking, we're like, so how are we going to market this show? And I'm like, do you want me to put, Autumn Raglan of Raglan, Jaret Ray Reddick of Bowling for Soup? And you're like, nope, I don't want people thinking it's a Bowling for Soup show. Like, I just have my name on it, and if they know me, they know me. If they don't, they don't,
But I tell promoters all the time, I'm like, put it in the description if you want to be, the guy from Bowling for Soup did a country record, that's fine. But on the marquee, I don't want it to be, because for so long, if you came and saw me solo doing an acoustic thing, I'd be doing Bowling for Soup songs because it would say Jaret Reddick of Bowling for Soup. But now it's like that's false advertising. I feel like, like now, and especially if I do a solo show, like the song swap, like I'll throw in a Bowling for Soup song here and there. But I don't really feel like I need to do that with the full country band thing anymore. Right. You ought to know what you're coming to see.
Yeah. And it doesn't take long I'd say, and the beautiful thing about the Texas country circuit is there's less luck involved in this music scene, I'd say, than any other music scene. Like, if you really just like put in the miles and make the connections, meet the people and shake the hands and stuff, like, you're going to like make an imprint. And so with that being said, I think everybody, whether it's radio folks or other bands or anybody like in this Texas country scene, most people know who you are now. And it's only been, they knew you, but I'm just saying now they know that you're doing this thing now. So yeah,
that's another interesting thing that you just said, because I do agree with that already. Like, I do think you're right. I don't think you need some. We're not all sitting here waiting for some label to come swoop us up,
right?
And listen, stars. We're not doing that. But you're right. If you're out there and pounding the pavement and you're doing the damn thing, then it's just going to keep growing for you.
And I tell people, go ahead. Sorry.
No. I'm just saying, like, you're working in a garden, so to speak. Yeah. But that's that, and I totally agree with you. I really do.
Well, and the thing about, and I tell people all the time, and I probably said this before on the podcast, but sometimes the secret to music is just plugging away, and it's like, obviously you're going to have your co-Etzels or your crazy party people, or like Parker McCollum, just your Hollister model as a country singer, and you're going to have like, but sometimes there's dudes like, or Cody Johnson, he's like just the, this century's cowboy, but you have dudes like Curtis Grimes, John Wolfe, Mike Ryan, and I love all those guys. But what I'm saying is, like, they don't have like this over the top charisma. They just have great songs. And sometimes all it takes is just plugging away after one, keep throwing shit at the wall and see what sticks. And so that's a good thing about our music scene is, like, you don't have to have some crazy, like, again, in punk rock, it's like, how fast can you play? What kind of, and in prog metal, it's like, are you playing the G12 to the
what the hell?
7th fret? Or what? I don't know.
You play enough notes on stage a minute. You've only played 1,200 notes. This is never going to cut
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's in Texas country though. It's just like, are you authentic? Are you good? Do you got what it takes? Because there's no such thing as overnight success in this music. Not maybe in other music scenes,
Yeah, but definitely
not in this music scene. Even if, like, I know people that have done really good on TikTok, that were in this music scene, and it took everybody from this music scene to be like, well, what are they going to do with that?
Yeah.
It's just, this is the most rewarding but hardworking genre, I feel like.
But also easy in the sense that, like, if you do put in the work, like, you're good. But if you don't, not even like the money. It's not even like if you put in enough money. I mean, for us, it hasn't been like this because we don't have money.
Yeah.
But so it's like, it's not even the money. It's just, it's the work. Yeah.
I was going to say exactly the same thing. It's not a bunch of throwing a bunch of money at it. And, because where's that money going to go? I mean, we all hire a radio promotions person because that's a necessity to get that out there. You have to do that, but as I said, the rest of our money is going to pay the band, pay for the van, pay for oil changes, gas in the tank, that kind of thing. We're, so yeah, I totally agree. I feel all of that. And even being as new as I am, the record came out almost exactly a year ago, and I've been working radio for almost a year and playing shows for like 8 months. And I feel everything you guys are saying.